So let me guess, you've clicked on this video because your coach has yelled at you for ball watching. Or maybe you lose your man too much when you're playing defense, or you're always late to rotate and you don't really know why. And the frustrating part is you're trying. It's not that you're a lazy defender. You actually care about defense, right? That's why you've clicked on this video and you're trying to get better. But for whatever reason, when the game speeds up, you find it really hard to watch the ball and your man, let alone everything else that's happening on the floor. And here's something that might surprise you. It's not because you're necessarily a bad defender, it's because you've never been taught or trained at how to actually see the game. Because most of us grow into basketball as fans first. And when fans watch the game, they're not watching it to get better, they're watching it for entertainment. So in this video, I'm not going to tell you to try harder or keep your head on a swivel. I'm going to actually walk you through step by step how to train your defensive awareness, starting with how you see the game, how you watch the game, then how you anticipate what's coming next, and finally how you can take that awareness and bring it onto the court step by step so you don't feel overwhelmed. Because defensive awareness isn't some sixth sense you can never capture, it's a trainable skill and definitely something you can get better at. So let's start with something simple. I'm going to show you a clip and I just want you to watch it as you normally would. Don't think about what you should be watching or how you should be playing defense just yet. Watch it as you naturally would and notice what you're looking at. Don't analyze it, don't pause it, just watch it and enjoy. Let's see it. Now, for most people, when they watch that play, they just lock into and are glued to the ball, and that's all they're seeing, which kind of makes sense when we think about how we've consumed basketball, especially if we're watching highlight reels, mixtapes, or one-on-one clips on social media. That's what our eyes are going to be naturally drawn to. But if that was the case when you watched that last clip, well, you might leave it saying, well, that was some good ball movement. But really, you've missed the true beauty of that play. You've missed the off-ball screens, the cuts, the timing, the screens, the spacing. You missed everything that made that play possible. Because when you only watch the ball, you're only seeing 20% of the game, two players, and there's 10. There's 80% of the game you're not watching. And that's truly where most of the magic lives. And especially, that's where defensive awareness lives. And let me show you the difference about how I see the game. When I watch this play, this is what it looks like. Notice the difference. I'm not glued to the ball. I'm scanning off the ball. I'm trying to take in all 5 players on offense moving at the same time. And honestly, I'm probably seeing the ball less than you think. But unless there's a pure isolation, the on-ball matchup isn't going to tell me a lot about what the play is developing into. And that's the difference right there. That's where defensive awareness lives and how we're watching the game. Because if every time you watch the game you're just focused on the ball, then no wonder every time you step on the floor, all you're watching is the ball or all you're watching is your man, and you find it really hard to do two things because that's the habit you've built. And if defensive awareness is a habit, which it is, then the fastest way to improve isn't by playing more games or in practice, it's actually changing how you watch and see the game. Because if we can retrain how you watch basketball as a fan, then that's going to transfer to when you step on the floor and how you see the game. And the first step to doing that is something called padding. Now, padding stands for play after diagram, but you don't need to know that. Don't worry, don't be scared off. It's not homework, it's not a test. A coach isn't going to review your work. All it means is we're going to watch one play, and instead of moving on after watching it once, we're going to try and understand one play as deeply as we can, which means we're actually going to watch it multiple times. And each time, we're going to pick a different player to lock in on and pad their path throughout the court. So if we take this play we've already watched, the first player I'm going to pad is Tony Parker. So you can see I'm going to take my pen, my diagram here, and I'm going to watch the play. As soon as he crosses half, I'm going to pad his exact path through the court. And notice I'm using a dotted line to signal a pass. And then I'm not going to take my eyes off him. Even though he got rid of the ball, I'm going to continue to follow his exact path throughout the court, try and make it as detailed as possible. When he crosses the lane line, exactly where he does it. When he goes out of bounds for 1 second, 1 step, exactly where he does it. I'm not looking for good enough. I'm looking for precise. Now he catches the ball. I'm going to draw a solid circle to indicate that. He dribbles. I'm going to draw a squiggly line. He passes a dotted line again. But I don't want to take my eyes off him. I want to know exactly where he's stopping, where he's starting, where he's cutting, where he's moving. You can see all he's doing right now is kind of getting back in transition defense. And there we have it. That was the first time we watched the play, and now I'm going to rewind it and pick a different player to watch and do the exact same thing. Pad their path throughout the entire court. And you're going to keep doing this for all 5 offensive players one at a time through the same play. And here's the important part. You're not trying to memorize the play or study the set. You're training your eyes to understand the movement, the timing, the spacing without the ball hijacking your attention. And something very interesting is going to happen, because once you've padded all 5 players, well, the 6th time you watch it, it's going to be like suddenly you can understand everything that's happening on the floor. You know where all the pieces are moving. Now the screens and the movement, the cuts, it all makes sense. That shot at the end isn't a surprise. It almost feels inevitable because you saw the entire play developing. And that's where defensive awareness truly lives. And that's what defensive IQ is about, seeing more. And yes, padding can be tedious at the start. The first time you do it, it might take you 6 to 7 minutes, but you're going to get better at it. Maybe the next time it only takes you 4, then 3, and then 2. And then suddenly you're able to do it on 2 or 3 watches of the play. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you, this exact thing helped me tremendously when I first started coaching over a decade ago, if you can believe it. But my goal was to see all 5 players on offense moving at once, and this tremendously helped me to the point where very quickly in my first year of coaching, I was able to watch a play on TV, watch a play when I'm scouting, or watch a game live when I'm coaching and know immediately what just happened, how all 5 players moved. I could diagram it after just one watch, which means in a game, I could alert my players the very next time they ran the same play exactly what was going to happen. Or I could call a timeout and I could adjust to the play because I knew exactly where all the pieces were moving. And once you build that habit through padding, you're going to see a lot more of the game. And once you start seeing more, you're going to start to anticipate more. And anticipation, well, that's the next level to defensive awareness. So defensive anticipation doesn't come from instincts or gambling or guessing. It comes from knowing what to pay attention to and seeing the bigger picture. So we're going to try something called occlusion. I know, another fancy big word, but what it basically means is we're going to watch a play and I'm going to stop it right before something happens and ask you a simple question. What happens next? And appreciate, if we did this earlier in the video when you were in your ball watching stage, your guesses would probably just be the guy with the ball drove it or shot it or made a step back. And that would have made sense because that's all you had to work with, what the ball was doing. But now, hopefully, you're taking in the bigger picture. You can see the movement, the spacing, the screens. You're going to start to see something that maybe feels inevitable. So don't watch the ball when we're watching this clip and don't really try and guess. See if you can pick up on a pattern, something that feels like it's about to happen. And before we really dive in, I just don't want you to think this is some random idea, this occlusion. This actually comes from studies, specifically in soccer, that showed that there's a huge difference between good and great players and great and elite players in how they anticipate and see the game, and they use this exact kind of test. So here's your chance. Let's watch this clip and watch it closely, because at any moment I'm going to cut it and ask you what's going to happen next. All right, here's your chance. What happens next? Now, hopefully you've picked up on more than just the ball. You noticed there was a back screen and then there were a stagger screen. So if your guess was the guy coming off the stagger screen was wide open, he catches and shoots it for 3, well, ding, 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 you would be correct. And don't worry, if you didn't pick up on that, it's not that you have low defensive IQ, it's that you're just starting out and we need to build this process. You might need a little more practice when it comes to padding so you can see those off-ball plays developing, because here's the secret. A lot of what happens in basketball, especially on the offensive side, isn't just random. There's a lot of hidden patterns to it. And what I mean is basketball kind of repeats actions. The simplest way I can explain this to you is if we just took a ball screen. When someone sets a ball screen, well, what's the screener going to do next? Well, really they only have two options, right? They can roll to the basket or they can pop. And that's a form of pattern recognition, knowing what that player is going to do before they do it. And elite defenders, like Davion Mitchell in this clip, he's anticipating that pop so that he can go steal that pass. He's not reacting faster, he's anticipating sooner. The same thing when a player rolls like they do here. You can see Avery Bradley's going to swoop in from the weak side and steal that pass to the roller. They're not guessing, they're capitalizing on what's going to happen next. Now, that's the simplest form of a pattern, and there are a lot more complicated ones. Like, for example, anytime there's a cross screen on the baseline or a flex screen, well, almost immediately there's going to be a down screen following it. So if you're just watching the ball, yeah, that shot might feel sudden and catch you off guard. What just happened over there? But if you're watching the play develop and the action, well, it almost feels inevitable. You know what was coming next, because basketball is honestly full of a lot of these little sequences, these patterns. And the more you can pick up on them, the more the game is going to slow down. Not because you're faster, but because fewer things surprise you. So let's try another clip, and remember, I'm going to cut it at any moment. So here's the play, same thing, watch closely, and I'm going to ask you what happens next. Okay, there you have it. What do you think is going to happen next? Now, I'll be honest, this play's a little harder than the first one, but hopefully you notice that off-ball screen action happening, and maybe you notice that they left the screener wide open, right? And you might think that now they're going to pass it to the roller, who's wide open going to the basket, and he's going to finish at the rim, right? Gobert, I think it was in that clip. And your guess, well, it would be partially right, except for the fact that Draymond Green is in that play too, and he saw the same thing you did. And so when you watch this play finish, he rotates early, and he actually makes a crazy block at the rim. And that's what elite defensive awareness feels like and looks like. It looks like he came out of nowhere. But it wasn't because he was reacting faster, it's because he was seeing sooner. Now here's the secret to plays like that most players don't understand. It's not that you always have to see everything that's happening to anticipate, because that becomes really hard when you're in games, especially when you're tired. What elite defenders do is they simplify and they anchor their attention in priorities. And there are really two main priorities that you can focus your attention on. The first one is what the main action is on the floor. So in this last clip, that off-ball screen is the main action, and honestly, there's not much else going on in the play. So if a breakdown is going to happen, it's going to come from that area of the floor, that action. So even before the ball is moving, you already know where the danger zone is. So Draymond Green looks like a player that shows up out of nowhere, but it's not because he's faster or gambling. It's because his attention was rooted on what's most likely to come up and hurt them as a team defense, and he was ready to be there at a moment's notice. And that's the first priority, knowing where the main action is. The second priority is knowing who can hurt you. So where's the other team's best player, their leading scorer, and where are your weakest defenders? Because if there's ever a situation where the other team's best player is matched up against one of our weaker defenders, you can probably anticipate what's happening next. That matchup is going to crack. And that's something Draymond Green has explicitly talked about in film sessions, breaking down his own clips. I mean, if you just watch this play of Draymond Green, he looks like a superhuman, right? He's following his man, he's scram switching with Curry, and then somehow he has the awareness to get back to the rim right on this blow by to make a play at the rim and stop the finish. And it looks superhuman, but if we go into what he was actually thinking, well, he said he was always worried about that matchup because Siakam's going to win that matchup 9 out of 10 times. So his attention was always leaning there. He always knew at the last minute he would need to go over and help. So it wasn't that he was abandoning his man. He knew where the danger zone was at all times, and so he was always ready to get there. So anticipation isn't about being quicker, it's about seeing the problem earlier. And once you start doing this, even a little, the game is going to start to slow down. Things are going to stop catching you off guard because you can see them developing. Padding teaches you how to see more, occlusion teaches you how to predict sooner, and now the last step is how can we bring this to live play without trying to do too many things at once. We don't need you to be Draymond Green tomorrow, we need to take baby steps. And this is where most players get it wrong. So let's simplify and let's build a checklist that will actually transfer to your defensive awareness. So now let's talk about how to transfer this to an actual game, because this is where a lot of players mess up. They learn about anticipation, they learn about awareness, and then they try and do everything all at once when they're not even ready. And they freeze because analysis by paralysis, they over-rotate, they lose their man even more because they're focusing on more things. And that's not what we want to happen to you. So let's build a simple checklist so you can add pieces to your game and only move on when the previous step feels comfortable. And the first step, I want you to apply right away to your next practice or game. And that's the goal of always seeing the ball and your man. That's it. Not the whole floor, not every screen going on, just your man and the ball. And I want to be clear about something real quick. This doesn't mean snapping your head back and forth like a crazy person. Like my high school coach used to tell me, keep my head on a swivel, but try it yourself. If you move your eyes back and forth, you're really not taking in any information at all. What I want you to do instead is called scanning, using your peripheral vision to take in as much information as you can to check back with your man and the ball. And you can deliberately check in on each if you feel there's a danger about to happen, but make sure you're never losing sight of the man and the ball and they never disappear. Something I want you to have in your head is I want you to imagine your man is constantly holding up fingers and you have to call up how many he's holding up. And the guy with the ball is doing the same thing. Now, they're not actually going to do that in a game, but that's a good mental model of how aware you need to be of both players. And once you can do that consistently, well, we've already fixed a huge problem in your defensive awareness. You're no longer a ball watcher. Now you're seeing both. And once that feels natural to you, well, now we can level up and we can add one more thing. Not everything, just one priority. And the first priority I want us to add is knowing where the best player is. So before the game, ask yourself, where's the other team's best scorer? Now, every possession, we're still seeing the ball, we're still seeing our man, but we're also being aware of where that best player is. Not staring at them, just aware. Because more often than not, that's the player where something bad is going to happen to your defense, and you're going to need to be able to rotate or respond. Once that starts to feel comfortable, now we can add a second priority, and that's knowing where the main action is. Again, we don't have to take in everything, just where's the main action, because that will be where the danger is going to be, right? Those clips we saw of Draymond Green. So know where the screen's coming from, where the off-ball movement is, because that's where an advantage might be created, and that's where we might need you to go over and respond. So even if your man's not involved in the play, still lean your attention to it so you can make those plays like Draymond Green. Now, let's back up for 1 second and understand you're still developing your defensive awareness. So you're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to go make every play. You're just trying to be early instead of late. And that's what good defense actually looks like and actually feels like. But there's still one more piece of this puzzle which we haven't talked about, and honestly, it could be its own separate video, and that piece is scouting. Because once you've trained your awareness and your anticipation, well, scouting's going to take that to a whole new level. Now you're not just recognizing patterns, you actually know what's coming. It's like knowing the answers to the test before you ever take it. You know what the other team likes to run on offense, you know where the other team's best player wants the ball, and you know what they're really trying to do. But scouting is a whole entire art form, and I could do a whole nother video on it. So if you're interested in that video, let me know in the comments below. But I also want to let you know that there's an entire scouting section inside the Built for Stops program at lockdowndefense.com. In fact, the lesson you're watching right now is already inside the Built for Stops program. The exact framework, the exact way to build your defensive awareness, it already lives inside the Built for Stops program, and there's even more to the lesson. More padding clips and worksheets to check your answers, more occlusion clips to test your anticipation, and a full breakdown of the most common offensive patterns in basketball to help you recognize the game faster. And yes, a scouting section that you can really prepare for your opponents and not just be guessing possession to possession, but actually predicting. So Built for Stops isn't just about tactics, it's a 5-day crash course into building your defensive identity and your defensive mindset. We work on developing a defensive IQ, rewiring how you respond to fatigue, becoming unbreakable as the game gets harder, and learning how to be a connector and voice of a defense. And it's actually the most affordable program at Lockdown Defense. I'm not trying to break anyone's bank. I'm trying to get this out to as many players as possible. That's why it's only $25, less than an arm sleeve, and you get lifetime access. And after the first day, if you don't feel like it's for you, I'll give you your money back, no questions asked. Honestly, day one where you build your alter ego, I think is worth the price of the whole program. So if you're interested in joining the Built for Stops program, I'll see you there. But this video has already given you a ton of valuable information. So if you've ever felt like the game is moving too fast, like you're reacting instead of anticipating, it's not because you don't care, and it's not because you're not smart enough. Awareness and anticipation is a defensive skill, and like any skill, it can be trained. It just means you need to practice it. And once you start seeing more, you can anticipate sooner. And when you can anticipate sooner, well, defense stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling controlled. And that's when you can go start making plays. So let me know how your defensive awareness improves and what you need help on next. As always, I'm Coach Mike with Lockdown Defense. Keep up the hard work.